Hello and welcome to yet another edition of Time Pass with the New Indian Express. I have with me JJ Valaya, one of the fashion pioneers of India. He trained under Rohit Khosla, an army brat, traveled the whole country, I think, as a kid. Was obviously influenced by a whole lot of things as a child, but most importantly, I think the royalty of Rajasthan. He, I think, grew up and was born in Jodhpur and really one of the earliest proponents of haute couture in India and still standing strong 28 years later, has just done a virtual fashion week. So there's a lot to say for sustainability and for perseverance, persistence, and for unchanging style. Thank you so much, JJ Valaya, for joining us. I have with me Edison Thomas as well. He's the editor of Indulge, and we're both going to try and understand from you what is it about you that keeps you going after so many years? So, tell us, what is it? And you took a brief hiatus in 2017, but you're back with renewed vigor. So, what really keeps you going, JJ?
So first of all, Kaveri, thank you for that introduction. It's always kind of, I mean, it's always good hearing about yourself, but to kind of encapsulate it in such a, it was very accurate and you got all the touch points right. So it was good for me also hearing exactly, how you perceive the brand and the person.
Yeah.
So yes, I did take a hiatus, probably one of the best decisions of my life. And it was a hard reset, much required. So you've given most of the facts already. Well, I started in, if I were to talk about my NIFT years, 1989.
Right.
So from that perspective, we're already kind of 31 years into the business of fashion. But the brand was 1992. At a time, you're well aware, a non-existent fashion market, a handful of designers trying to make a mark. Rohit Khosla, who I consider the father of Indian fashion, of course, ruling the roost and taking all the first steps. And then discovering a completely new market. And remember, at a time when we had no internet, no magazines on writing about fashion, one channel, Doordarshan, which really was all about farmers mostly. And then in popped us a whole new breed of people who said, you know what, you need to wear clothes with our names in it. So it was a complete shakeout which had to happen. And yet the journey has been so brilliant. And that whole process of actually having no benchmarks to follow, but trying to learn everything yourself. All the mistakes we've done, wow, fantastic. I'm glad we did them because they just made us, so evolutionary in moment, in sort of this thing. We're evolving with every single moment of time. And till date, it continues. So I started with couture. I'm still into couture. And in an Indian context, that essentially means beautiful, large Indian weddings.
Yeah.
And that's where people really spend their money. And I think anybody who says otherwise is trying to be too posh, which is whatever. But wow, what a market. I remember telling a major French couturier once that, we're the only country in the world which can produce and consume couture with equal zest. The West, Parisians still produce couture, but there are 200 women in the world who buy it.
Right.
Whereas in India, it's that, it's the wedding and we have to dress the part, look the part. And that's what keeps the spirit of this country alive. Because I think as designers, our primary role, besides, of course, making beautiful clothes and all, is just to keep the India of then alive.
Yeah.
And relevant to the current generation, which lives their life in the palm of a hand. So it's a beautiful sort of journey from there from now to now,
But when you talk about the big, beautiful, big fat Indian wedding, the pandemic has taken a toll and it will take a toll. It will be more frugal than it was before. How are we going to customize our fashion for this new, lesser, leaner Indian wedding?
So the amazing part about life is that it exists only in this moment. And we all tend to forget that. We either dwell in the past or think about the future.
Right.
and moments pass. So all things good or bad eventually are transient. And the pandemic is of course not here to stay. It's eventually going to pass. So yes, there is a transient shift in definitely what brides and grooms want to wear today, for the simple reason that they can't have more than 100 guests.
Yeah.
And they have maybe thousands throwing flowers on the screen when they're watching the wedding over Zoom or whatever. But essentially, it's more intimate, it's more personal, it's more private. Yet the spirit is unmoved. So the bride and the groom still, it is their most important day. They still want to dress the part. They don't want to dress for thousands. They want to dress for the 100. And more importantly, they want to dress for themselves. So of course there's a shift because of that. But that essentially means that maybe they won't spend that kind of money, but they still want the beautiful new clothes and they still want to look the part. You know, most weddings live in memories. It's the
Yeah.
imagery later which people go back to and say, you remember this, you remember this is what I look like. So you've got to live with that. And this will pass and we'll come out into, I think, a more appreciative planet, hopefully.
JJ, there's the other part of, our tradition being sustainable, recyclable. The grandmother's sari comes up and the granddaughter would love to wear it with a few modifications. How is that little tradition continuing with this kind of opulence and, wanting to look good in the moment with exactly what is au courant?
Well, firstly, I think couture is one of the best examples of sustainability. So what the world is now talking a lot about, we've been practicing for years. And I stand by this for the simple reason that I have my brides from 26, 27, 28 years back now coming back to me with their daughters who want their mother's wedding clothes fixed to their size.
Lovely.
So yeah, there's no bigger high, at least for me, than that. To be able to suddenly see a completely new generation resonating with what we did nearly a quarter of a century back.
Right.
So when that happens, I can't think of any better way to promote sustainability. So we are creating something which is top quality. We're giving the finest of work. We are making it timeless. It endures. It is an heirloom. It has passed down generations and probably will for another go till the fabric and the textile lasts.
Right.
So I don't think we have a problem there at all. We've already been practicing that. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. But honestly, if you ask me, opulence is a word which is often used in a very negative connotation.
Right.
That is very untrue of its nature. I mean, what would India have been without its Maharajas? Think about it sometimes. And yet, we have whichever film, I've forgotten the name, sorry, which celebrated only the slums. But everybody forgets about the India that was.
The Slumdog Millionaire.
Slumdog Millionaire, yes. And we just forget about the India that was. And for good or for bad, that was a sort of a benchmark to see, oh my God, look at these glorious palaces and the beautiful forts and the beautiful crafts. They were connoisseurs of the best Indian crafts as well as global luxury brands. So I think the world and India have a lot to owe to that generation of Indians, who were kind of indulging. And there's nothing wrong in that. If you have it, you then indulge.
JJ, it's always concerned me that, when you talk about the Maharajas, they were the greatest patrons of the Chanels and Cartiers of the world, the Rolls Royces. I mean, a lot of the luxury brands in the world existed because the Maharajas patronized them. Why have we not been able to build a parallel global fashion brand, a made in India brand? We've got the Pashminas and we've got the Banarsis, but we don't have one sort of global name which the world recognizes as a big luxury brand.
There are many reasons for that. We've been trying to shake off the Gora hangover, which had existed in this country, unfortunately, for a while. And to think that all things West are fantastic and you take India for granted.
Right.
So that's a mindset which I think is gradually changing. Also, for any brand to sort of grow, whether it was the West, if you look at any of the luxury brands in the West, they all started very small,
Yeah.
but they reached the next level when the big boys got in. So Louis Vuitton was sitting on a street making trunks by hand and catering to some royalty in Europe when he got discovered and bought over and then taken to the next level. So I think those kind of associations are going to be the basis of and the genesis and the birth of any great Indian brand in terms of fashion and lifestyle is going to happen when it goes to a certain scale. And that is only possible when the corporates actually start tying up hands with Indian designer brands. And it's already happening, thankfully.
Yeah.
We have a few instances which have taken place. And I think the way forward, they're going to realize that, you know what, Indian designers actually have what it takes. And let's just now take these boys to the next level. So I'm actually looking forward to it. It should be fun.
Yeah. Also, because the things that India can do, the West has forgotten the kind of handwork that India does. Where do you have it in the rest of the world? Do we have such things in the rest of the world?
No, nothing. It's in fact, that's where I often feel saddened because look at the treasure trove we're sitting upon.
Yeah.
We can get the best fabrics done here. We can get the best handcrafts, the best carvings, the best inlays. Just about the best of everything can be done in this country. And you know, because we don't value ourselves enough. I mean, I was working on a luxury project about 5 years back in which I had to travel the entire world visiting the finest units of luxury across the planet, across all products.
That's
So
a great project.
pot crockery, whether it was silverware, whether it were bags, and the way those people spoke about that product, that is as if they were holding gold.
Right.
We are so dismissive. Ah, ye to chodo, ye. Look what Chandni Chowk does to poor designer clothes.
Yeah.
It's just shocking. So when I went there, and I went to one of the units which was making Chanel bags, and they showed me the process, and then they showed me the rejects. And I said, "What do you mean by reject?" I mean, from the face of it looks great. He said, "No, no, no. Look in the corner. We were supposed to have 6 stitches. It's 5. So this is a reject. And now we will destroy it." So the point is the quest for perfection and the pride of saying that we deliver the best and we are bloody well proud of it. That pride has to come first. When the Indians get that, we will be able to rule the world in terms of creating quality product.
How are we going to get there, JJ?
You know, in our little fiefdoms and kingdoms that we compose and try and envision ourselves, we kind of already practice it. Yeah. I've had instances where I've asked my clients respectfully when they have tried to want me to do something which was not up to the mark and up to the levels of our brand. I've really recommended other people they can go to because it just doesn't work with us. Okay, I'm losing money, fine. But in the end, it's the foundation I build now which will make this brand stand up, you know, wherever it has to go. I don't know the future. So I think it's utter faith in yourself, a no compromise attitude. The 19-20 attitude has to go. It cannot work in luxury. And eventually, you know, the energies of the universe have their way to start communicating with you. So when you're dedicated and honest with your work, you'll get back what you really need.
Right. Edison, you want to step in?
Yeah, I have a few questions about the creative process.
I'm intrigued by your name, Edison.
Yeah.
Yeah, Edison. Yeah, and it's Edison Thomas.
Edison Thomas, not Thomas Edison.
Yeah, I had nothing to do with it. Yeah. So so I'm you know curious about your creative process, Mr. Valaya. You have been inspired by photographs, and you also consider yourself a photographer. You know, with the changing technology, with the cell phone becoming so ubiquitous, and you know everybody using it, and I'm sure you use it. And have you found this to be a little bit more inspiring? Has it inspired you to come up with something new, or is this something in the pipeline?
So one of the things I strongly believe in, that if you're going to live a life, you might as well live an inspired life. You know, the people who sort of sulk most of the time and think of all the negatives aren't getting anywhere. So I look at change as the most positive thing in the world. And frankly, you know, Henri Cartier-Bresson, I don't know if you've heard of him, but I consider him like the godfather of candid photography.
Right.
And he used to walk the streets carrying his little Leica around in those days. And he said, it's all about the decisive moment. When that moment presents itself, you have to be ready and armed to capture it and immortalize it. So it'll present itself magically. It'll just suddenly everything will fall into place and you'll see the perfect frame. So thanks to mobile technology, you actually are armed all the time now.
Yeah.
And I've personally been practicing as a photographer. I've been taking pictures all the time. I do little memoirs, my travel memoirs, which I call the little book of memories, because I feel digital imagery will get lost in its hard drives and which will crash or which will disappear. And to translate them onto paper and books is very important. So we do these little books, which are just memories. And I think I find it one of the greatest accomplishments of technology, that here you are, you can live your life in the palm of your hand, you can capture anything, you can immortalize a moment, and you can basically, just sort of be totally prepared all the time to take in as much as you want to. So I'm not one of those purists who'd say, no, analog and the richness of film, sure it's there. But if you're not moving with the times, then you're going to be left behind sooner or later. And I'm actually perfectly happy with technology as long as there's a good balance.
Yeah, and staying with the technology, you've just fresh come off an online fashion show.
Yeah.
What was that experience like?
So that was quite crazy actually, because we are so used to gearing up for that 25 minutes of adrenaline rush that we get after 8 to 10 months of hard work. That this was different because we got a chance to do takes and retakes and then edit it into a crisp film. But at the end of it, it's amazing because suddenly I didn't have 500 people, out of which 480 would go back unhappy because they didn't get good seats. So I suddenly had 2 lakh people watching that show at one single time.
Wow.
And in the course of 1 month, I'm sure that we'll probably touch 1 million viewers. So that, to my mind, is incredible. Everybody saw it. Then we had emails and SMSs and messages and comments coming up, majorly from all over the world. So, well, this is great. Suddenly you're accessible to the entire world, and it took what? Just making something spectacular and beautiful. So I think the way forward, as I said, is going to be a balance between real time and virtual. One can't ignore the other, but they'll have to learn to live in blissful harmony.
Yeah.
JJ, I wanted to ask you, you've been watching the Indian woman and the Indian man for a long time now. Have they become more fashionable, more conscious of the way they're put together? Especially the Indian man, he's suddenly taken to a lot more colors than he was used to. Have they become more adventurous? Talk a little about that.
So I think in all aspects, other than control of the English language, control and command of the language, the country is on a roll. And the generations that are emerging, and I have 2 daughters, one's a millennial, the other's a Gen Z. So one's 22, the other's 12.
I'm surprised you're still standing and smiling.
Having a great time. And they keep me young because I'm jamming with my 12-year-old to the kind of music she listens to. And my 22-year-old is suddenly deciding she's become a woman, and she's, the wisdom has emerged and everything. So it's great. So I think the important thing is that this generation has too many choices.
Yeah.
And they have too easy access. We all had to struggle for everything. I mean, I'll tell you this. I find it a very sweet story, but I'm going to share it. People may think otherwise. When I was starting to be a chartered accountant, and then I decided this is ridiculous. I'm never going to be sitting and auditing banks and all. So I quit. I had no idea what I was going to do, but I knew it would be something creative. And then NIFT opened, and then one visit, and I was convinced it was going to be NIFT. So between the time I was preparing for the entrance exam, I was in Chandigarh then. So between the time I was preparing for the entrance exam till I actually got in, I put together my little trunk of goodies at home. And one of my most priceless possessions in that was a label of Giorgio Armani. Only a label.
A label.
One label. I thought I was the ultimate stud on the planet. In India, I possessed a label of Armani. Forget about owning a garment.
How did you come upon that label?
I have no clue. I don't remember. But the fact that I actually had a label around one of the world's best designers was, to me, I had attained nirvana. Cut to now.
Right.
Look at the change. I mean, this gives you a description of what's going on. So I think the generation today, you travel easier. We used to wait up. Oh, you're going abroad. My God, you are so arrived. It was a different era. Right. And today, yeah, okay, what are you doing on the weekend? Let's go to Bangkok or let's go to Dubai. Yeah. So too easy, too much access. To top it all, you have the internet. So everything you had to chase behind, you now get in a little instrument. So, well, it obviously opens up the mind positively and negatively. And but it's a much better informed generation. They are easier, they are more confident, they certainly know the ways of the world. They're a smarter generation, but I sometimes feel they're a lonely generation.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing which disturbs me, because technology has taken away the human touch, which I believe that if a human being, all of us, don't activate all our senses, we're not going to be able to enjoy life in its fullest form. So other than that, and bad command over the English language.
But, sorry, Edison, yes.
Yeah, I was, wanted to talk about this touch, you were talking about the human touch. So, with so much of online shopping and all that, has it actually affected, the people actually walking into, your designer stores and actually, touching and feeling your garments? I mean, has that experience changed? Or is that going to change even more?
So, we have to, again, if I were to look at the pandemic and the circumstances that surround us today, of course, people are limited. They're less comfortable coming to real-time spaces. They have to make do with whatever they see online. And that is why it is our duty to make the online experience as enriched and as realistic as we can. And that's what we try to do. So I launched Valaya.com after a good 10 years. And if you go to the site, you'll see experientially, you can actually just get into the website. There are opportunities to video connect with our team, who will take you to every garment, every detail, every sort of whim and fancy of yours, so that we try and make you feel that you're actually in a real store. But nothing in couture can replace the experience of actually being there, which you're buying couture. It's like a little investment. You want to feel special. So you walk into a space which is beautiful and glamorous. You get attended and pampered. There's silver service, liveried butlers. Then you're sort of looking at the garments. You're trying them on. You're trying to read how other people are reacting to you. All those things you cannot do on a screen. So I think, as I said, but look at the flip side. Can I have the whole world coming to my one store or two stores or three stores? No. So conventionally, I've opened a shop in every city in the world now with the online space.
Right.
So I have a larger audience, but I think it'll be naive to say that couture or anything luxury can survive only on a virtual space.
Yeah, you need to have that physical store.
Absolutely.
Yeah. JJ, talk a little about the Indian man. We didn't quite talk enough about him. Has he become trendier? Forget his command over the language.
We talk to the Indian men, and they're the true peacocks. Look at this guy at the back behind. You can't see the painting, but I'm going to flip the screen a little. You'll recognize him. Yashwant Rao Holkar.
Right.
Who was the trendiest Maharaja India ever saw. He got his portraits done by Man Ray.
Really?
And he created this Art Deco sort of palaces and all.
Uh-huh.
And you feel like a piece. And you know, Richard is, of course, Holker is still there. And I
Yeah.
often, I try to ask him as much as I can. I haven't been interacting once with him. But Yashwantrao Holker was this sort of, he'd get portraits done in tuxedos against,
Wow.
it was amazing. You should do a Google on him today,
But
right?
how come he's not as well known as the Kapurthala guys and, you know, the
Yeah.
Gaikwads? And why is that?
That must be some politics in play, and I can't go there.
Okay.
But all I know is that this fellow was this very sort of trendy guy.
Acha.
To have a man photograph you,
Yeah.
and deco designers, entire palace and all, I think that's very cool.
Yeah.
So the men are the true peacocks, actually.
Yeah.
And if I were to tell you that the real transition, at least in couture, has happened in the men.
Hmm.
Because they started with the three-piece suit when I started my career. And today, if you see the kind of outfits they're ready to wear, they want to rival the best. They want to rival their brides. They want to look the part. And I think that's amazing evolution. And all this in the couture wedding space. But even otherwise, men are generally trendier now. You know, they like to dress up. The colors are changing. They're not afraid to wear the reds and pinks and greens and yellows. Accessories play a major role. The pocket squares are amazing. Cufflinks are being looked into. So there are the little details and nuances which actually set, you know, people apart. I mean, the chaff from the grain. So I think, yes, men have certainly evolved. Nearly 40% of our revenue comes from menswear.
Oh.
And we're working on our real-time space, and hopefully it'll have a nice, cozy, good section for men as well.
What is the most outrageous thing a man has ever asked you to sort of customize for him?
I've been spared of this torture, actually. Because I believe there are a lot of them who are doing enough to shock and awe. But the guys who come to me, they're pretty docile, and they like to kind of believe that what I give them is something that they want.
Okay.
So I frankly haven't had any strange demand. Not that I can think of. No.
Your jacket is quite something, you know, that has sort of become iconic. You know, talk a little about that, because I find that really very interesting. The whole wearing of the jacket by the Indian woman itself, that in itself tells you a big story about the way a very Western kind of power dressing garment has been Indianized.
Correct. I think I've got some strong affinity with the form itself, because when I go back in time and when I started my career, my first collection, and I was an award-winning student from NIFT. I'd won every possible award in NIFT and in Paris and everything. Yeah,
Who was in your batch, JJ?
we were third batch NIFT, so my classmates, the one you'd know about, would be Rana Gill and Ashish Soni.
Wow.
So that way. So so the first line I made, interestingly, and I showcased it in Calcutta in a joint show which had Rohit Khosla, Rohit Bal, me, and Gitanjali Kashyap, 4 of us.
Wow.
You remember Gitu.
Yeah.
And the next day was, you know, the clothes have to be sold. And I was a little lamb because the other 3 were already kind of commercially selling.
Right.
And the next day, not a single piece sold. It was a complete washout.
Oh.
And all my, you know, dreams and everything, I'm like, oh my God, this is a disaster. What am I going to do? So I went back to the drawing board, and you didn't have money at that time. So one had to really kind of, you know, and I remade a new collection, which I then showcased in Bangalore. It was a line of jackets, black and white jackets, and every single piece sold out.
Wow.
So I'm just giving you the disparity. So I think that jackets and I have a strong connect. And then I've always been in awe of Coco Chanel, that there was this crazy woman, high lifestyle, wacky enough, but managed to create a brand. And then after she died, I was again in awe of Karl Lagerfeld, who actually for 33 to 35 years championed this brand and probably really showcased it the way couture should be shown. The grandest shows, you know, without losing the plot. So one thing that really endured in Chanel was always a tweed jacket.
Yes.
You know, it's still relevant today. It was relevant then. And that was a very exciting thought for me. I said, look, the people have come and gone. but a silhouette has stood the test of time. And however mundane we may think or however frivolous we may think fashion is, it does do a lot to human psychology. And I've seen people transforming in front of my eyes from one person to another person just because they wore the right clothes. So I decided that I wanted to work on a silhouette which would be timeless, which would never change. I called it the Alika because that 2011, the collection I was doing was based on a fictional courtesan called Alika. So that was the name of the jacket. And interestingly enough, when we launched the website a few weeks back, we introduced the Ika, which is the younger sibling of the Alika. So this one, same shape, same silhouette, but just easier to wear, easier to buy, reversible, can go from day into night, and you can go online and actually put it together yourself.
Wow.
So it's a DIY. So that sort of thing. So these are like little, and you know, it's quite amazing because the Alika, when we introduced it, it's a shirt jacket. It's not really structured.
Right.
So people wore it with saris, people wore it over gowns, people wore it with jeans. I had these American women come in, they went totally crazy. They were wearing it over their, skinnies and everything. So what I'm trying to say is the idea was to create something versatile and which would appeal to everybody. I even had some gay guys buy it from me because it looked so lovely in it.
Yeah.
So it's amazing. I think, wow, kudos.
Yeah, and I think it also speaks to the latent power that women have. And obviously, over the years, you have seen the emergence of the working woman and a more stylish woman in the public domain. So perhaps this was just waiting for her.
Listen, I have always believed from day one, I'm a huge fan of women, number one.
Good.
Number two, I've always believed that emotionally, they are far stronger than us, mentally and emotionally. It's just physically we're stronger. So the women get about to getting the task done, they get it done. It'll happen. So I'm completely biased towards them anyways.
Great. Edison, you want to ask something?
Don't hate me, Edison.
Yeah. So I'm very curious about this whole shared creative process that you have now with your stores, with your online stores, especially with the ICA jacket. You've just mentioned that, your clients can actually, participate in the whole creation. Now, is this something that, we're going to see a lot more of in future? Is this, because the technology allows it, or?
It's a one-time thing, and this is the only thing that will ever get a DIY. Otherwise, sorry guys, you got to trust me.
But how has that whole experience been? I mean, is it? I mean, your clients must be loving it, right? I mean, to share.
Well, we only give sneak peeks till now. It's going to be launched in the next week. But I know a whole lot of people who are dying to go and experiment. And frankly, that's what's exciting to me. I want everybody to have fun. I mean, that's, part of the whole, as I said, every moment has to be lived. You inspire yourself and live. And I hope that this is something exciting and will grow on people.
JJ, how has your army background influenced you? The travels that you did, your what you saw with your dad. How did that influence your growing up years and you now?
So, I have to tell you, one of my fondest memories is a billboard that appeared in all army cantonments about 10 years back. And it was a billboard with I think 8 or 10 faces. And the line said, "These are army kids. If they could do it, so can you."
Oh.
And I was like, wow, man, I've died and gone to heaven.
You were one of them, right?
Yeah, I was one of them. And the others were like really top-notch guys. Like, okay, maybe I just undervalue myself a little more. Push myself a little. But I'm like, okay, I'm feeling like, and that went up in every cantonment in the country.
Wow.
So I thought that was like my biggest high. It was, wow. But I cannot tell you how thankful I am to be raised in an army, this thing, because ever since I can remember, it was one cantonment to the other. And by the time I got my senses and wits about me, Dad had moved into very senior positions. So we used to get these mansions as homes,
Right.
very large homes with very large gardens and everything. So that whole atmosphere, that sense of discipline, and my mother was forever, busy with the army welfare. So she loved embroideries, and with the French knots and smocking
Right.
and sort of, all those things. So you see all the lady shadow work,
Right.
the whole those. So
Yeah.
I suppose I vibed a lot
Right.
of seeing what all was happening there. The discipline part came from dad. The ability to adapt very quickly came from the fact that we moved schools and homes every 3 years. So you leave old friends behind, you make new ones, only to leave them again. Yeah, so I think I couldn't have asked for anything better. And because I believe that defense kids are generally a class apart. They'll never be like the civilians who have been born, brought up, raised, and will probably get married and die in the same city. I mean, come on, you've got to get beyond. There's so much to see.
It's all, I've always wondered, JJ, you come from that generation where, the Rohit Bars, the Rohit Khoslas, I mean, these are giants and these still are giants of fashion. Even if Rohit Khosla is no more, I think his memory still
Yes.
inspires a lot of people. So when you look back at those early years, what are some of the fondest memories or the nicest things that you remember about those years?
Well, for starters, we had supermodels,
Yeah, of course.
and I could recognize models, and I knew their names. And I think that was a very big thing but it wasn't in India alone. Even, I mean, when you looked to the West, Linda Evangelista, Christy Turlington, Naomi Campbell. I mean, so it was a completely different sort of spirit. And also, we weren't that commercial then. And we were actually, since we were a handful of guys, we were always doing things. Whatever we did was the first time it happened. So there was something very interesting in that. And then we used to have a lot of joint shows, which is not really the culture now. Now it's all fashion weeks and this thing and all. But as I said, evolution happens and you have to warm up to it and you have to grow with it. Everything doesn't have to be revolutionary. A lot of life has to be evolutionary. So too many memories way back then, too many conversations between Rohit and me, Khosla, and how we used to walk the gullies, get into little villages, go and see block printing units, um, and then sit down and experiment with embroidery. I mean, there's just too much. Even the way we used to get together in the evenings, parties, socialize, do shows, it was just a different world. But
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people who just get stuck there and said, in our days, this used to happen. No. My day is now. And whatever's happening now is what I'm absolutely excited about.
Absolutely. Edison, a last question and then we'll call it a day.
Yeah, I'm just wondering how you're managing, post these lockdowns. I mean, you must have, lost quite a few of your craftsmen, moving back to, their villages. So I'm just wondering, how you've managed through this difficult time, Salami?
So two things. A, when the real lockdown happened, which was March to June, I think, uh, it was the best time for me to create my entire line in terms of sketches. So all my sketches for my fashion line, as well as our Valaya home line, which is furniture, everything was done then. And I think it was perhaps the most undisturbed time I've ever kind of felt because there was nothing else to do. Yes, what was sad was we kind of looked after our guys. We made sure that they don't leave.
So they didn't keep.
Okay.
While some left, most stayed. And a lot of them are back again. So I think things are slowly but surely getting back on track. It's going to take time. I mean, within the fraternity, we all had written off 2020. It said, okay, this year is about survival. Nobody's going to make money. It's not about money. Let's just focus on doing great work and keeping everybody keeping everybody's head above the water. And when I say everybody, I mean the people who are dependent on you, the people who are sort of, their entire livelihood depends on you. But and that's gone fairly well. So by God's grace, I think, as I said, everything is transient. So this negativity too shall pass, hopefully sooner than later. And what I'm really looking forward to is what emerges on the other side. And I'm talking about the people and the world. Are they going to be more appreciative? Are they going to be more grateful? Are they going to be kinder? Or are they still going to remain, in some make-believe world that everybody likes to build? So I think what's fascinating is what's going to happen after. And frankly, I'm looking forward to that.
Do you think fashion will change to keep up with the new world?
It's going to slow down for sure. It had become too fast. I mean, this is ridiculous. Some brands had created 6 seasons in 1 year. I mean, that was being silly. So all you need is a winter and a summer. You need to have fewer choices. You need to have better quality garments. You need to have slow down. And I think that is what this has achieved globally. Everybody now is talking about 2 seasons and showing at a respectable time, not like 8 months before a season. And then when time comes, you're putting your stuff on sale. It doesn't work that way. So I think personally, I feel this is the hard reset the planet needed. And what comes out on the other side will only be better and a big, big lesson. So I hope we are just wiser.
For you personally, JJ?
Well, you know, my sabbatical, somebody told me the other day that what did you prophesize this? And because you took a sabbatical just before this happened,
Right.
and I pretty much changed my entire life to go with this philosophy of focusing on what I do best, doing high quality product, slowing down. I'm in no rush. I am not running any rat race anymore. My blinkers are off because I don't have to look left or right. All I'm seeing is my path forward. Whether I trot or canter or gallop, that's up to me, but it's my path. What the people left and right are doing, I'm not perturbed about. So I think that decision also helped me because I completely restructured my business and worked around, you know, the way we were working before. And now, perforce, because of this, I think a lot of people are going to have to follow that. There's no option.
In the sense that were you being pushed by investors to work harder, faster, create more?
No, we fortunately didn't have investors. We were managing on our own. But I just thought that couture was becoming incredibly boring and repetitive. And to me, that was my big shakedown. And I had to be honest to myself. I remember going to a couture week a couple of years, 3 years back, and everybody's clothes looked the same. Like, oh my God, this is so sad. Because, you know, I come from a time when each one had a statement and we were doing wondrous looks and all. And sure, there was bitching and cross-stitching and all, but we did beautiful clothes. And now just everybody took a piece of fabric, embroidered it to the hilt, stitched it together, and that was it. So where was the thought? Where was the emotion? Where was the soul in clothing? So I didn't want to run that race anymore. So I just stepped back, reassessed everything, and in 2019 came back with the new me.
Great.
Same old me, but in a new way.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you for always evolving and keeping us abreast of the times as well. Thank you very much for a wonderful conversation. Thank you, Edison. Thank you, JJ.
Thank you, Kaveri. Thank you, Edison.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.